Hey folks, it's Matt once again, and welcome back to another wrestling video. And this time, it's about WrestleMania VIII in 1992. Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan doing commentary, which is, again, I've said this in the past, always fun that those two are on commentary. And this was a weird time in WWF because you get the idea that maybe Hulk Hogan was sort of being forced out, maybe because of the steroid scandal that was happening. And sort of a weird if I can say the fucking words right, weird transition. Because WrestleMania VIII is one of those that, from what I understand, was going to have a very different card, very different lineup. It was going to have Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. It was going to have Macho Man Randy Savage versus Jake the Snake Roberts. It was going to have Legion of Doom. I don't know if it was versus Natural Disasters or versus Money Inc. I'm not sure which one. I thought Natural Disasters because the last pay-per-view or two, they had a match, but then it was like kind of a BS finish, so thought, okay, this would be the payoff. Marty Jannetty versus Shawn Michaels. Undertaker versus... I don't know. I'm guessing if Ultimate Warrior was still there, it would have been the Warrior. But maybe Sid. Maybe it was going to be Ultimate Warrior versus Sid Justice, which would happen a few years later. But it was definitely going to be a much different lineup. And that would have been really cool. I mean, Macho Man versus Jake the Snake Roberts. Macho Man still had a great match in here with Ric Flair, which is actually one of the best parts of this. But Macho Man versus Jake the Snake Roberts, after that was really the only good thing in this Tuesday in Texas, was their promos and build-up of that. That would have been great, but it was what it was. And just a lot of things. I've heard that, well, Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan were not selling that well when they were doing house shows or superstars, and people didn't really care. So, maybe let's drop that. Then it's like, oh, Marty Jannetty got, I think he got arrested or busted for drugs or something, and so Marty Jannetty couldn't be there, so it was Shawn Michaels versus the El Matador, Tito Santana. Legion of Doom, I think Hawk, something happened with him. Maybe it was drugs, maybe something else. But then the Legion of Doom was here, but I'm guessing, or I read somewhere that when Hawk came back, they didn't have enough TV time to build up a match for this, which I'm like, you didn't really have to do that. I mean, you could just have them fight the natural disasters and beat the natural disasters or beat Money Inc. or something of that nature. Which I think in the next like SummerSlam or something like that, they did beat Money Inc. Which I'm like, well, why didn't you just have that with this? Jake the Snake Robert, well, Macho Man had to do, since they're not going to have Hogan. And also, with Hulk Hogan, either it was because him and Ric Flair wasn't going to sell tickets, or it's because the steroid scandal was, they were kind of forcing Hogan out. I mentioned this before, but that if Hulk Hogan was fighting Ric Flair, Hogan, I don't think he would have lost or let himself lose. But then if he won, he'd have the belt, and he can't have the belt because he would have, he would have been gone by that point. Although I'm thinking, but isn't it the same company that a few years later Shawn Michaels had the belt, and then he's like, when he lost his smile, he's like, oh, here you go. Like, if they let Shawn Michaels do that years later, they could not let Hogan do that. I mean, I'm just curious about the original card that would have been. Because I think it would have been a much better WrestleMania. Because this WrestleMania has some good, decent stuff. It's really helped by the Gorilla Monsoon Bobby Heenan commentary. So I did have fun with this WrestleMania. I would still say WrestleMania 7 is my favorite of the first 8. Well, I saw the 9th one as well. The first 9 so far, and this is definitely better than the next WrestleMania. It's definitely better than WrestleMania 9. But I mean, WrestleMania 8 is, I think, a pretty decent. Um, Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper was a great one. Macho versus Ric Flair was a great one. And then Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan commentary was fun. Some of the other stuff, it's... Well, let me get into it. Shawn Michaels versus Tito Santana. It seemed like a lot of Tito giving Shawn a headlock, and then Shawn throws Tito out of the ring and gives Tito a backbreaker, a kick to Tito's chin. Tito gives his flying forearm and atomic drops and flying moves. And the finish was shitty. It was just Shawn grabbing a rope, and Tito falls down, and then Shawn pins him. And I'm like, wow, Tito fucking sucks. It was like something happened, and Shawn Michaels grabbed the rope, and then Tito fell down, and then Shawn pinned him, and I was ready for the crowd to go, Tito, you suck! Tito sucks! And then Tito Santana, anytime he's done this nowadays, at this point, it's just he's going to lose. But yeah, it was supposed to be him and Shawn and Marty Jannetty, which they would fight later, but that would have been a much better match if it was Shawn and Marty Jannetty. Just Tito Santana just does nothing for me, and the match really wasn't much to it. I mean, Shawn Michaels has given quite a few good matches. I mean, hell, in WrestleMania 9, honestly, his match with Tatanka, I think it's the best match of that card, and I think it's actually a pretty decent match. It's definitely the best match Tatanka ever had, and the year after. And even that match was better than this one. And again, that's like one of the only good ones in WrestleMania 9. I'll give more to that, but... so the first match is kind of... And then you have the Legion of Doom at WrestleMania, and you're thinking, well, why don't they wrestle? But, you know, maybe because of the reasons I mentioned before, maybe something else. And they have their manager, which I'm like, they don't need a manager. I think this is the same fucking manager that had like a fucking ventriloquist doll. I don't know, I can't remember if it was in this one, but I think in the SummerSlam after, the fucking manager would have a fucking ventriloquist doll. Who the fuck do you think he is? Jeff Dunham? What the fuck? I'll mention that in SummerSlam thing especially, but fucking stupid. Then you did, and the LOD, I mean, they might as well not have been there if they weren't going to wrestle. I mean, Jake the Snake Roberts versus Undertaker. This is Jake the Snake Roberts, pretty much his final match in WWF. I think him, the story on, I believe, Pick Your Poison, the Jake the Snake DVD I have, mentions something of Jake. It was that or an interview that he was maybe up for a position, he didn't get it, and they were, honestly, in my opinion, they were screwing him for a while because they wouldn't let him do anything. This guy was a big hit with people, and they would not let him win a Royal Rumble. His match with Macho Man, which is his build-up, they had to just end it on a fucking like house show, which sucks. I mean, Jay gave these great promos at Tuesday in Texas, and they couldn't do anything, you know, in the WrestleMania. And he didn't get any belts, not a tag team, not Intercontinental, let alone champion. I remember hearing at one point, this is like quite a few years ago, that there was something cut where Jake the Snake did something with the Hulk Hogan, and then like people were yelling DDT, DDT, DDT. Like they weren't going for Hogan. They were going for Jake, DDT. And so they kind of had to push Jake the Snake down because he was getting to be more popular than Hogan at one point, and that's why there was never much of a Jake versus Hogan match or feud or whatever. Which I'm like, I think even Hogan says this in, I don't know if it was the DVD. It might have been on the Pick Your Poison DVD. It's like one of those bonus features. I think it was. But yeah, I mean, this was his last match, and Jake the Snake versus Undertaker, the second match Undertaker's had at a WrestleMania. And not much to it. Jake getting beaten up and choked. Then Jake does 2 DDTs. But the Undertaker gets up and gives Jake a tombstone on the outside. His pile driver move. And then beats Jake the Snake Roberts. Really a nothing match. Kind of a humdrum finish for Jake the Snake's career at WWF. I mean, the only other time he came back was a year or two ago. I think, was it 2-3 years ago? He just appeared one time on like a Monday Night Raw, and I know it was when CM Punk was there. But really well, no, I take that back. I completely forgot about 1996 when he came back as the Bible thumping guy. How could I forget that? Because Stone Cold Steve Austin would fighting him, beat him, and Jake the Snake Roberts is one of the guys. He's the reason why Steve Austin thought of 316. So I completely forgot that. I don't know how. So he did. It was not the last thing for WWF. It was for a while, for a couple years, but then he came back. I did about 96, somewhere around there. So completely forgot about that. So I'm glad I caught that before I ended this video. But I would say this is the last match in his prime. I'll say that. It's not much of a match. Then you get to one of the best matches, easily, on this WrestleMania. Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper for the Intercontinental belt. They have a nice interview when they're with each other. And it's nice that when Roddy Piper passed away, there's actually a nice scene where Bret Hart's in the ring and he says some nice words about Roddy Piper, that he was a good friend, and there's some interviews as well. So I like that Bret Hart did that. That was really nice of him. And you tell these two respected each other. And they had a great match. They had some good back and forth. There's a point where Roddy Piper's going to do his villain tactics and hit Bret with a bell. Then he threw it down and decided to fight fair. And it's one of the only times Roddy Piper let someone pin him. That's how much Roddy Piper respected Bret Hart. Roddy Piper let Bret Hart pin him. And Bret Hart won and became the new Intercontinental Champion. And then they helped each other out. And, by this point, Bret Hart's bleeding. And just a great match. Great match. Yeah. I really don't... If you haven't seen it, check it out for yourself. I don't want to spoil anything. I think it's a really damn good match. We're introduced to Lex Luger, where there's an interview. This is when Vince McMahon had his WBF, his World Bodybuilding Federation, which it's one of those stupid Vince McMahon things, kind of like XFL, that he thought was going to work. Hey, let's have, a World Bodybuilding Federation. And Lex Luger was the big star, and pretty much when that fell through the shitter, Lex Luger pretty much went into the WWF with his stupid bionic elbow thing. And yeah, I'll talk about that in the future. But not much. Lex Luger I'm not much of a fan of Lex Luger, to be honest. Just sort of a plain rapper. The best way to describe Lex Luger is a plain rapper. Big Boss Man, Virgil, Sergeant Slaughter, and Jim Duggan versus the Nasty Boys, Repo Man, and the Mountie. It was quick. It was fun for the people involved. Like, I like Big Boss Man, Sergeant Slaughter, Jim Duggan. All of them doing a 4-way clothesline against the bad guys. It was pretty short because it was like 5-6 minutes. And you have 8 people in this match, 4 and 4. So with 8 people and you only have 5-6 minutes, It's pretty much they go in, do something, go out. Someone goes in, does something, go out. I mean, I'm sure some people would say that they're glad that it was so short because they didn't want to get bored, but it would have been nice to maybe be a little bit longer. I mean, it's just like, oh, okay. Because it's like, oh, Big Boss Man, I like him, but he didn't really get to do too much. Oh, none of these people get to do too much because, again, they only have like 5-6 minutes with all these different people in it. So, but I mean, it was quick, it was fun, time waster type of watch. They didn't get. I don't know if this is my favorite match or the Roddy Piper Bret Hart. I probably go Roddy Piper Bret Hart. I go that's my favorite. And then this is my second favorite, Macho Man versus Ric Flair. Pretty much the setup here, which they had to think up quick before WrestleMania, says it can't be Macho Man versus Jake the Snake because we'd have to give someone the belt, give it to Macho Man. I'm like, that's cool. Something about Ric Flair said that Liz wanted him and made these fake photos with Ric Flair and Elizabeth, and Macho Man got pissed and wanted to defend his honor and the honor of his woman, as well as go for the belt. And yeah, punches, clotheslines, elbows. Ric Flair blades, cut himself. That's what wrestlers do. They cut themselves with a blade in order to make it seem like they're bleeding. Like they hit something. Usually they have a razor hidden, maybe if they have something on their wrist or taped to some, I guess, tape it in their mouth. Some tape it in their trunks. And like they'll cut and then hide it. And then when they turn around, oh my God, he's bleeding. He must have got hit by, that rail or this weapon or something like that. So Ric Flair's bleeding. Some fun back and forth. The finish was kind of weird because Miss Elizabeth comes out and like for some reason like 10 people trying to get Miss Elizabeth back, but I'm thinking, wait a minute, Mr. Perfect is out there with Ric Flair the whole time, but no one's trying to get Mr. Perfect back. But when Miss Elizabeth comes out, there's like 10 people like, no, you must go back there. You must go back there. And then the finish, it's like, Macho Man's ready. He did his finishing move, but then Mr. Perfect came in, and then all this hubbub, and then Randy's leg is hurt, and then it's pretty much Ric Flair fucked with Macho's leg. But then it's like we're barely paying attention to the match because we're looking at Miss Elizabeth with these 10 people trying to shoo her away, which I'm like, you're not doing anything about Mr. Perfect, but Miss Elizabeth is the one you have problems with or worried about. And then pretty much giving the schoolboy, which is grab Ric Flair, turn him around, pins him 1, 2, 3, and that's how he wins. So the finish was kind of wonky for me, but overall, Macho Man, there's quite a few WrestleManias. He does a great job. His battle with Hulk Hogan was fun. His one with Ricky Steamboat, classic. Definitely my favorite WrestleMania 3. His one with Ultimate Warrior is one of my favorites, and my favorite one of WrestleMania 7. And this one is one of my favorites for WrestleMania 8. So Macho Man, he does good work. He really does. Miss the guy. So still a very fun match. Then, this is actually interesting. Sid Justice, they actually have a musical montage of him beating up on all these jobbers. These guys who are just there to be beat to make the more notable names look better. And it was fun because I didn't expect a musical montage for the guy to set up the last match. Tatanka versus Rip Martel. Honestly, the match wasn't much. Tatanka wins. I was listening more to the commentary by Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. Just that was funnier than hell. Just Monsoon just continually telling Bobby, "You're a liar! You're a liar! You're a liar!" Because Bobby the Heenan's so flustered that his buddy Ric Flair lost. Gorilla Monsoon's like, "Don't jump! Don't jump!" Yeah. if you listen to it, you know what I'm talking about. It is, they worked well together. So that was better than the actual match. Tatanka versus Red Martel was nothing. Just Tatanka wins, whatever. I don't remember any damn thing about it. Just Tatanka, he had a good match with Shawn Michaels in WrestleMania 9, in my opinion. But he wasn't much of a wrestler, or he definitely didn't show it in this match. Yeah, I mean, it's just nothing match. Natural Disaster versus Money Inc. All I remember was the crappy finish. Money Inc. left, so they forfeit, count out, but because it was a count out, Money Inc. still has the titles. So Natural Disasters win from a count out, but because again, Money Inc. left, but they don't get the belts. So wonky finish for WrestleMania. I mean, this is WrestleMania, and this is how you finish. I'm like, why not just prevent Legion of Doom, fight natural disasters, knock them both out of the ring, and have them lose in a count out, or something like that. I mean, Owen Hart versus Skinner, I like Owen Hart, but this is fucking useless match. First, again, why Skinner? Skinner spits in Owen's face, and Owen did nothing and won. He did nothing, pinned him, won. I'm like, what the fuck? This is a WrestleMania match. First of all, I can't believe that Skinner was in a WrestleMania match. Skinner! And not the Simpsons one. Skinner! The guy with the fucking chewing tobacco on the alligator boot. Skinner was in a fucking WrestleMania. In a nothing match. Hell, even the match he had with Bret Hart at Tuesday, Texas was a better match than this fuck. This was a nothing match. I'm like, Owen Hart was talented. Shame what happened to him. And this is what you give him for WrestleMania? There's a nothing match with this fucking guy named Skinner? Seriously? Useless. It's like a minute long. And then you get the Hogan versus Sid, which honestly, there was nothing to it. I like Sid Justice. But, you're working with a guy like Hogan, which Hogan himself is limited to what he can do. And, Sid is not the most technical guy either. So, honestly, it was one of the more forgettable Hogan WrestleMania matches. I mean, if I look back, WrestleMania 1, it was a fun tag team with Hogan, Mr. T versus Roddy Piper, and Paul Orndorff. That's better than this. 2, I like the steel cage match he has with King Kong Bundy. 3, Under the Giant, at least the crowd and the iconic images that we remember since we were kids. I do feel the match is a bit overrated but it was still better than this one. WrestleMania 4, well, actually his match with Andre at WrestleMania 4 was really lame. WrestleMania 5, his match with Hogan was better than this. WrestleMania 6, him and Ultimate Warrior was actually pretty damn good. WrestleMania 7, I actually really liked his match with Sergeant Slaughter. WrestleMania 7, I think it's one of Hogan's better matches. This one, I mean, his match at WrestleMania 9 is worse. But here, the only thing memorable is the ending. Because Hogan was going to pin Sid. And for what I understand, I don't know if this is the truth, but what I understand, there's this guy named Papa Shango, and he was supposed to run out and stop the count and hit Hulk Hogan, so there's disqualification, Hogan would win. I guess they didn't want Sid to get beaten because Vince was going to use Sid for future stuff, I'm guessing. But from what I understand, Papa Shango was late. And so the manager of Sid had to improvise and try to hit Hogan. And if you watch, you see that Sid actually jumps out of before he gets to 3. So technically, Hogan did his leg drop on Sid, and Sid got out of it. And that's because, you know, he had no choice. Papa Shango fucked up. And this is from what I understand. But again, if you watch closely, Sid Justice, he broke out. You know, he kicked out, I should say. He kicked out of Hogan's finisher. And then the return of the Ultimate Warrior, which he looked different, he looked slimmer, his hair was different. I know there's a point that some people didn't know, was this the actual Ultimate Warrior? And he honestly, he came back. He would not last that long. I mean, he would only last till, I think, a bit after SummerSlam. Like, between SummerSlam and Survivor Series, he was there SummerSlam versus Macho, but in between that and Survivor Series, he was gone. So, Warrior returning, helping Hogan by clotheslining Sid and Papa Shango, which, during that time, I mean, I know I'm going ahead of myself, but Ultimate Warrior, I believe he would fight Sid on house shows. He would fight with Papa Shango. And then the SummerSlam match he had with Macho Man. And then it was going to be him and Macho Man versus Ric Flair, Razor Ramon at Survivor Series. But then Ultimate Warrior either quit or got fired or whatever the hell happened. I'm not sure. And then Mr. Perfect had to team up with Macho Man, which I'll get into that when I get to those. But overall, this WrestleMania, it had two very solid matches. Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper and Macho Man versus Ric Flair. And the one with Biz Bossman and Sergeant Slaughter, sort of the 4 versus 4, was quick, fun, time waster. That was, and I like the counter with Heenan and Monsoon. That was really it. So definitely not as good as WrestleMania 7. And definitely not as good as Royal Rumble 1990. Like, Royal Rumble 1992 was much more exciting with Ric Flair winning and stuff than this WrestleMania. But it's not the worst. The year after would be worse than this. But at least you had two pretty solid matches. But still, that's not a good ratio. 2 with, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About 9 matches. I mean, I like the Big Boss Man, and I'll count that. So 3. 3 matches I liked. Not really a good ratio, but you know, it was what it was. Again, this was sort of a going away from the big muscle up guys to the new generation where you don't have more of Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon was going to get in there. Bret Hart would be champion. I'm trying to see, how did that work? Macho Man, I'm trying to see, who did he lose the belt to? I don't know who he lost the belt to. Was it Yokozuna he lost the belt to? Or was it... It might have been. I can't remember. I guess I'll find out. But either way, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.